when Naji Marshall speaks, you freaking listen, okay? You don't have to agree with what Naji Marshall says when he speaks, but you do have to listen. And he said something yesterday on Instagram about one of his teammates. It might be one of his teammates that we've tried to trade probably 1,000 times on this show. But guys, he spoke. I listened. I've even done some thinking, and I know that that is terrifying for those of you that are listening to the show. Like, bro, don't think too hard here. But anyway, yeah, that's what we're going to spend time on today. What did Naji Marshall say? What is the context behind it? Who was he talking about? And what could it mean for the Mavs this upcoming season? Let's do this.
This is Your Mavs, a Dallas Mavericks podcast where all are welcome, but y'all better behave.
All right, before we jump into content for the day, I have a couple things to say. First, if you're a new subscriber or you've migrated over to this channel, you found your way to the Your Mavs channel from the Your Spurs channel, can I just say welcome? Hey, we have the Texas connection going on. I would say once the season starts, the Spurs and Mavs might be our number one rivalry. I don't even know if we're on your radar anymore. But anyway, it's so great to have you here. Even if you're not specifically a Mavs fan, I just want to give you a warm welcome. But if you're hanging out, you don't match any of those categories I just threw out there, Mavs fan, Spurs fan, it doesn't matter. I feel like this is a community where we can openly and respectfully talk about NBA basketball. Of course, because it's a Your Mavs channel, I'm going to take as much NBA information and then skew it into a Mavericks conversation as humanly possible. That's what we do around here. But yeah, if you're hanging around, you're vibing with the content, I want you to be part of this community. So yeah, what are we waiting for? Just hit the subscribe button. I love having you here. I love the conversations that are happening in the comments section. Let's do this. And the goal for the month of August, it's starting to feel a little too audacious. That's okay. I'm not taking my foot off the pedal, and I need your help to get it done. I would love for this channel to reach 750 subs by the end of this month, and we're at 549 as I hit record today. So again, I've said it before, I'll say it again. If I have to record every day for us to hit that goal, I will do it. And I missed the past couple of days because I've had a lot of success in finding foods that you're not supposed to eat right now that have been recalled. And it's been brutal around here, but I'm not dying. Everything's fine. I'm back in the studio. And again, I'll record every day if I have to. Let's freaking do this. But getting into the content of the day, right? The reason that we're all here is to talk, well, I guess we're not really talking fully about Naji Marshall, but we're just going to unpack what he said about one of his teammates, and then we're going to unpack that. Here's what he had to say. This is on Instagram. The context of this Instagram post is it's showing Daniel Gaffford in a Pro-Am run, and he's looking fantastic. He's looking like he's in great shape. Naji Marshall says this about his teammate. No U-turns. Watch how my brother make y'all regret everything y'all said. Woo! Okay, so I know that he's not just talking to me, but I have definitely tried to trade his teammate, Daniel Gaffford, like a million times on this show. I just got dunked on, and I'm okay with that. Again, when Naji speaks, you listen. I listened to what he had to say, and I'll even add the hashtag that he put at the end of this comment, #HealthyGaff, right? We've spent a lot of time, like I said, trying to trade Daniel Gaffford. We've even offered, I think, what are legitimate basketball reasons for trading him before. But you know what? I'm not going to do a U-turn on today's show, but what I am going to do is contextualize the #HealthyGaff comment, right? Because I think it's easy to forget after watching all of last season how horrible it was, how much of a train wreck our entire season was. And even like if you wanted to pinpoint Daniel Gaffford and his performances, like it started off bad and it was pretty well consistently bad all season because he hurt his ankle, right? The first day of training camp last season, he sprained his ankle. That ankle was not okay for the entire season. He just kept re-injuring it. Come back for a game or two. Sprained my ankle again. Like, I think we have to understand that. I think we have to let that fully process because we've already moved on from last season, but we haven't moved on from the reasoning behind why his season didn't go well. Okay? I'm guilty of it. You're guilty of it. We're all guilty of it. It's fine. We're going to fix it right now. So, Healthy Gaff, well, I think if we had talked about Healthy Gaff this time last year, everybody would be in the same, we'd all be in agreement. Because at the tail end of the season that we traded Luka Doncic and then we lost Kyrie Irving to his ACL tear, Daniel Gaffford was awesome, right? Like, let's not forget that. He went through this stretch of a couple weeks where I think he was putting up Wilt Chamberlain type of statistics where he hit like 13 or 14, maybe even 15 field goals in a row. He was shooting something like 73% from the paint. He was just doing things in an incredibly efficient manner. And I think at that time, he was at the top of Mavs world. Like everybody loved and was all in on Daniel Gafford. And then, well, actually, I don't know. Let's backtrack that statement for a second. Before that was the finals run, right? Where, Derek Lively established himself on this roster as like the anchor of our defense. Even as a rookie, he was doing things that rookies shouldn't be doing, like just shutting down everybody in front of him. He was switchable, he was quick, he was all those things. So then you compare side by side how Derek Lively did in that run versus Daniel Gafford. It became this a very dual conversation. Like, okay, you either have to be all in on Derek Lively or Daniel Gafford. There's nothing in between. Well, I need you to remove that mentality from your mind right now. I will contextualize what the narrative that many have like been spewing for the past few years in Mavs land is that he was unplayable in that NBA Finals series against the Boston Celtics. Off the cuff, I'm just going to tell you right now, yes, that is true. He was virtually unplayable in that series. But if you look at the 3 series leading into the finals, he was incredible. And again, context matters when you're looking at matchups, when you're looking at offensive schemes. The Mavericks were up against before the finals, they were up against the Thunder, they were up against the Timberwolves, and I believe the first round was against the Clippers. Somebody fact check me on that. I did not have time to do all the research I needed to do. I just got this idea, asked for a little help, and then I just dove right in. Here's the thing, though. If you want to pinpoint the matchup that we had in the Western Conference semis against the Minnesota Timberwolves, well, think about who he would have been covering in that matchup. It would have been like a lot of Rudy Gobert, right? What is Rudy Gobert really good at besides being a defensive player of the year like 3 or 4 years in a row? He's a really good paint presence, okay? And one of Daniel Gafford's strengths is he's also a really strong paint presence. He's a good rim protector. He's a rim runner. He's gonna clog up that paint. He's gonna make it very difficult if you enter his territory, and that's why he was called what was it? The landlord? Is that right? Is that ringing a bell to anybody? We just haven't used that nickname for him in a really long time because he's fallen out of favor with Mavs fans. But in this Rudy Gobert situation, he's able to stay in front of Rudy because Rudy is slow, right? Rudy is not an explosive athlete. He's just tall, right? So Daniel Gafford did okay against Rudy Gobert. In the Western Conference Finals against the Thunder, he did okay against Isaiah Hartenstein, who's not a stretch big at all, right? He's, again, going to do everything that he does to make money in the paint. Daniel Gafford owns the paint. He's the landlord, right? So what happened in the finals that made him unplayable? Why has that narrative continued on well past that finals matchup? Here's the context. The Boston Celtics, who we faced in the finals, they were one of the most dominant teams that we've seen in the playoffs over the past, I would say, 10 seasons. They were very, very good from start to finish. They were so deep in their rotation that they had any guy that could go for 20 points on any given night. And a lot of times they went off for 20 points on the same night, right? They're chunking up threes. They're putting up an NBA historic. I can't even talk. Collect yourself, Ethan. They were putting up bonkers numbers on 3-point volume, and if you connect at 40% at a high volume of 3-point attempts, then yeah, you're going to steamroll all of your opponents, and that's what they did in their finals run. When they matched up against the Mavericks in the actual finals, we're like way overmatched here. Something is not working, and here's what it was: the Celtics were running a 5-out offense. Okay, if you don't know what that means, typically that means all 5 players are lining up, running their offensive scheme outside of the 3-point line. So what that means is if you get enough spacing, each one of those guys that are lined up around the perimeter could get an open look if there's an on-ball screen to create space, or if you have a ball handler that catches the ball at the top of the key, he's got a clear lane to make it to the paint. With that particular Celtics team, all of them could shoot the leather off the ball from the 3-point line. Like, if you don't believe me, like that, I believe the starting lineup was Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis, and Al Horford. every one of those guys are efficient three-point shooters. Okay, maybe not Jaylen Brown, but you get the idea. Every one of them can shoot. They were running that 5-out scheme until they were blue in the face, and they murdered us using it. How did that expose Daniel Gafford specifically when it didn't really expose Derek Lively? The main thing is whenever they're running a 5-out offense, Daniel Gafford doesn't have that lateral quickness. He doesn't have that explosive speed to be able to stay in front of those types of guys. So yeah, they can fire away from the 3-point line and do so comfortably. Because Daniel Gafford does not have the closeout speed. He does not have, like, let's say you put the ball on the floor and you get one step ahead of Daniel Gafford. He doesn't really have that explosive speed to catch up to you and do a chase down block. That's not as bad. But if you get him really cozy in the paint, he's going to do landlord things. So that's the Celtics knew that about his game, and they're like, you know what? We're drawing up schemes to avoid that very, very thing. And he didn't do well in those situations. In fact, he got himself in foul trouble early in those games. He just could not hang, right? A lot of times he was even covering Jason Tatum because Joe Mazzulla knew how to draw up the right matchups where, like, Tatum and Gafford, believe it or not, are basically the same height. Even though Gafford is bigger and ultimately stronger, Jason Tatum had no issue staying in front of Daniel Gafford when Daniel Gafford was on offense. So they were doing all sorts of things to wear down Daniel Gafford and show that he could not stay in front of those guys on the perimeter. Guess who can? Derek Lively. Yeah, the guy that can't stay healthy. He showed us that in that final series, even when we were at our worst, he had a three-pointer, and he showed that he was a switchable defender. He was quick enough to stay in front of guys, whether it's a point guard or a Porzingis or Horford. He made life very difficult for the Celtics when he was on the floor. So it's like, okay, I realize just off that player prototype, a 7-footer, injury history, blah, 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 you're not going to want to play them 45 minutes a night. Like, that's nonsense. That's how you get terrible, terrible injuries that just continue to recur. With Derek Lively, it's like, can we keep him on the floor a little bit more? Right? I went back and watched some film. Daniel Gafford was getting cooked. But here's the thing, right? I don't think you're ever going to hear me say on the show that Daniel Gafford is a better player than Derek Lively. That's nonsense. I don't have to spend any time or energy talking to you about comparing those two players. We all know that if Derek Lively ever pulls it together with his health, he will be our franchise center. He will be the anchor of our defense. He will be part of our core. So we're not going to spend time talking about that. But, naturally you have to compare apples to apples here when we're talking about when we start the season. Derek Lively is not probably going to be healthy, right? Like at this moment, it is all speculation, right? We don't have any actual reporting or any actual timelines to work with here. But I think it's looking very likely 2 months out, Derek Lively's probably not going to be there for opening tip on October 21st. So that means we have to prepare ourselves for the Daniel Gafford experience once more. And I think that's actually a good thing because, again, in any other situation besides a 5-out offense, Daniel Gafford does pretty freaking well. And again, I'm just gonna remind you, he made a name for himself. He was called the landlord for a reason. You bring that weak stuff into his house, his paint, it's being sent away with authority. If he comes off of a screen and rolls to the basket, whether it's in the finals run in 2024, obviously we had Luka and Kyrie to feed him. Now we've got Kyrie back. We've got Sergio De La Rey, who looks to be the lob god, okay? We've got Naji Marshall, who is a solid ball handler who can set up his guys. And I think towards the tail end of last season, when Daniel Gafford was starting to get a little bit more rhythm, a little bit more like healthy run on the court, it seemed like he and Cooper Flagg had some good vibes. And Mike Marshall, who has been Cooper Flagg's trainer for years and years and years, he said if he had to pick one player prototype that Coop thrives next to, it is a rim running. I do this every time. Rim running center. Like Derek Lively, like Daniel Gafford. We got both of those guys. So I think, again, if Derek Lively's not healthy at the start of the season, it's not the end of the world. If you want to look back and way overanalyze all the film from the 2024 final series against the Celtics, you're going to probably come to the same conclusion that you've already heard me say over and over. That wasn't the best ideal situation for him. Derek Lively is a more ideal player for not just that matchup, but pretty much all matchups, right? If you're quick and you're explosive and you're fast and all of the things, then I think you're going to do a better job covering all positions if you have to, right? But let's not get it twisted. Daniel Gafford is a very, very good basketball player, and once Derek Lively comes back 100% healthy and he reclaims his role as the starting center, I think many are going to agree that Daniel Gafford then becomes the best backup center in the NBA once again. He showed himself very, very loyal and true in the playoffs. He just didn't do really well against a five-out offense. So that begs the question. If we're not going to have Derek Lively healthy to start the season and Daniel Gafford is our starting center, well, do we really have to worry about like being owned by teams that are running that five-out scheme? I'm not necessarily convinced. Okay, because obviously that version of the Celtics doesn't exist anymore. They've basically blown up that entire team. 3 players remain: Jason Tatum, Peyton Pritchard, and Derek White. And I think Derek White's probably going to get traded soon. That's just my speculation. But what teams are out there right now that have the type of personnel to run a similar offense, a similar scheme to what the Celtics were? Well, I think maybe we're looking at the Lakers, right? They just traded for Walker Kessler, who I guess technically can shoot the 3 ball. They signed Sandro Mamukelashvili, who I guess technically can shoot the ball from the 3. So I guess the Lakers could run a 5-out offense. I guess somebody like the Spurs could run a 5-out offense because now they've got Wemby and Tobias Harris as their bigs. And that's going to be a different look for the Spurs than we've seen over these past few years. And I think it's going to be even better version of basketball than we saw from them last season. Are we worried about the Thunder running a 5-out offense? I don't know. Like, I don't know that that's really their bag, but if they want to run small ball and have Chet at the 5 and Jalen Williams at the 4, then yeah, I guess they could be running a 5-out offense. The point is this, guys. Daniel Gafford was very exposed against a 5-out offense, but I don't see many teams right now that are running that scheme successfully and consistently enough where we could like really put, draw a line in the sand. Like, no, this is the reason we can't have Daniel Gafford. Whenever we come up against these matchups, he is unplayable. It's just not going to occur all that often, guys. So, Naji spoke. I listened. I thought it through. I'm not going to do a U-turn. Like, I'm not going to take back all the podcast episodes where I've tried to trade Daniel Gafford for a point of attack defender. I still think that is our biggest gap on our roster. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I would love to trade Daniel Gafford for another on-ball creator, right? Playmaker. Shoot the leather off the ball. Like, I would love to say that we could do that, but if we don't, it is not the end of the world. So I'm not going to do a U-turn, but I do want to contextualize Daniel Gafford is a very good player, and if his role on this team moving forward is to be a backup center, that's going to be a very good thing. And if he ultimately gets moved at the deadline because we see more of him and he's effective and efficient again, we owe him an apology because he's had to listen to all of it. He's had to listen to his name being thrown out in so many trade conversations. And I have no idea the type of impact that has on an NBA player. But all that aside, I'm going to jump back in and be all in favor of Daniel Gafford as our starting center on night 1, assuming that Derek Lively isn't going to be there. And I think you guys are going to start to see, like, yeah, he has put a ton of work in the lab this summer to get himself back in really good shape. He looks thinner and leaner and stronger and quicker and all of those things in the film that I've seen this offseason. So we might be in for a pleasant surprise here. I might even say that he's ready to shock everyone, including me. So Daniel Gafford, Naji Marshall, y'all are right, okay? Like, I don't expect Naji Marshall to go on Instagram and say like, oh, Daniel Gafford, yeah, let's definitely trade him. That would be stupid. But of course he's going to gas up his teammates. But I think he's on to something, especially with that hashtag healthy gaff. Let's not forget, okay? So if I deserve to be roasted for this episode because I have been leading the charge to try and trade Daniel Gafford, I will fully own that. Again, I'm not going to make any sort of U-turns in this episode today, but I want to know what you're thinking, right? Like, do you spend a lot of time mourning the loss of that 2024 finals to the point where it's like Daniel Gafford has lost his usefulness on this roster? Like, if that's where you're at, tell me what you need to see from Daniel Gafford to be back in, okay? Because it seems like his teammates are all in. It seems like he is all in. He's doing the work that it takes to get back to being 100% healthy gaff. So I think that's going to be effective on especially to start the season. And if Derek Lively comes back and retakes his starting spot and Daniel Gafford is the best backup center in the NBA, I don't think that's a bad thing, right? So again, you tell me what you're thinking. I've spoken on the matter for now 20 minutes. And now I think that's probably a good point to hop out of the studio, bid you guys adieu, And again, if you've made it this long in the episode and you haven't hit the button yet, just go ahead and hit subscribe. Do it. And without further ado, y'all be good. And as always, party on.